Pretty impressive, a display of international military might. Thousands of men and women from several different countries all landed on Camp Pendleton's beaches today. It's all part of a multinational exercise called Dawn Blitz.
New at 5, 10 News reporter Joe Little was on the beach during that exercise and reveals why training alongside other countries has become part of the U.S. military's way of life.
Down the beach from me, you can see two hovercraft have just landed on Red Beach here at Camp Pendleton. It's just a very small part of the largest amphibious training exercise ever. They came in hovercrafts, amphibious assault vehicles.
This is something that we in the Marine Corps do on a regular basis, but not always this large.
Protected from above by choppers.
Get it back in big order.
Hundreds of Marines came to shore at Camp Pendleton, and not just Americans. Marines and sailors from countries like Chile, New Zealand, Canada, and Japan. They hit the beach together for Dawn Blitz, a multinational training exercise.
Assaulting onto the shore, and they're going to rapidly move through the beach.
For some, it was their first time in an LCAC, the Marines' transport hovercraft.
I was going to get seasick there for a little bit.
But it's certainly the first time many of them have trained with other countries.
We know that wherever we go today, we're going to be operating alongside a strong coalition.
That coalition is 5,000 strong this month.
Yeah, they got a gap for you up there.
Dawn Blitz allows them to work out the differences between how each country operates.
And overcome that friction of different languages, different communication systems.
Before they have to respond for real to a conflict or natural disaster together. At Camp Pendleton, Joe Little, 10 News.
The Dawn Blitz exercises have caused delays for drivers. During today's exercise at Camp Pendleton, military vehicles temporarily blocked parts of Old Highway 101 here to Basilone Road. Here's the I-5 North, the off-ramp going to Basilone Road, and then the I-5 South off-ramp going down to Basilone Road. Now, the biggest delays, we're told, are between 6 in the morning and noon, and the Dawn Blitz exercises in Friday.
Hello, I'm Secretary of Homeland Security Janet Napolitano. As recovery efforts begin, I want to take a few moments to explain some of the steps being taken every step of the way. The President, FEMA Administrator Fugate, and I have been and will remain in close touch with the governors of the impacted states to ensure they have the support they need.
The President wants to relax me with his statements there to the H6.
Thank you.
Everybody tracking that?
DP1, DP3.
Yeah. And then we need mortars. Need somebody to go grab. Actually, since you guys aren't, you go grab, get Callie's or Gunny for mortars. One of the two.
Enemy size?
Yeah.
18?
About 18.
Max?
Not like 30 or 40. So very light.
Got it. 6 Marines and New Zealanders continued their vigorous training during Exercise Dawn Blitz 2013 with a barricade steel shoot at Range 218. The range was designed to imitate shooting in an urban environment, showing the shooters they will not always be in a practical shooting area.
We got a barricade shoot. It's a couple different shooting platforms. Try to introduce a little bit less conventional. Everything else that you go through with war, you're not always going to be shooting from standing or the traditional prone.
The training also gave the Marines a chance to work with the New Zealanders, preparing them for future operations where they might have to work together.
Down here at the Marine level is the ability for that Lance Corporal, that Corporal, the Sergeant, the Lieutenant to be able to work with those Canadian and New Zealander partners and understand what their capabilities are, and really the Canadians and New Zealanders to understand what our capabilities are.
Throughout the duration of the range, the Marines and New Zealanders learned tactics from each other that one day could be essential in future operations. Reporting from Camp Pendleton, California, I'm Lance Corporal James Gulliver.
On June 25, 2013, in Washington, D.C., the Russian Emergency Situations Ministry, Russia's equivalent to FEMA, signed an agreement with FEMA to, quote, exchange experts during joint rescue operations and major disasters. This, according to the Russian Ministry for Civil Defense website. The Civil Defense website, however, goes on to discuss something that appears to be much more sinister. Russian so-called experts will be engaged in, quote, monitoring and forecasting emergency situations, training of rescuers, development of mine rescuing, and provision of security at mass events. This last line, that of providing security at mass events, has many people worried. We are talking about events like the Super Bowl, the Boston Marathon, and so on. Consider this. Russia, a country that is in effect our enemy, of which the NSA Edward Snowden controversy has exemplified, could next year be providing security at the Boston Marathon. We must remember that the Boston Marathon terrorists, Dzhokhar and Tamerlan Tsarnaev, were Chechens with close ties to the Russians. After the Boston Marathon bombing, having the Russians take part in security would be like the fox guarding the henhouse. This is, in effect, colluding with the enemy. Where will it end? If Russia will be providing security at so-called mass events, why not at smaller events? A high school prom, a local farmer's market, perhaps even a private party. Will there be any event safe from Russian security forces? And what about the so-called major disasters, the main function of these so-called experts? What will constitute a major disaster? We know during Hurricane Katrina, the local police were confiscating guns. New Orleans Mayor Ray Nagin famously uttered these chilling words. No one will be able to be armed. We will take all weapons. Only law enforcement will be allowed to have guns. Guns were illegally confiscated, countermanding the Second Amendment. Here, New Orleans police confiscated weapons. We can easily see if Russian experts were brought in during a disaster, we would have Russian so-called security forces. Let's call them what they really are, Russian soldiers, on American soil confiscating guns from American citizens. Let us also remember that after the Boston Marathon terrorist attack, de facto martial law was declared in the Watertown and surrounding areas. Looking for the unarmed teenager Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, hundreds of militarized police conducted illegal house-to-house searches. Citizens were taken into custody without being charged with a crime. If a de facto or declared martial law took place, would these Russian soldiers be alongside our militarized police? Would there come a time when the Russian soldiers were actually the ones in charge during the martial law? What is our own government, the rogue administration of Barack Hussein Obama, doing? Most would call this colluding with the enemy. Most would call this treason. Obama has gone beyond trampling on the Constitution and has become an enemy of the state, a traitor.